Hi, second graders, and welcome back to another day of listening and learning with Miss Catrone from Citizenship Academy. So, as you know, we've been studying this concept, which is immigration. And if you remember, immigration is when a person or a group of people travel and move from one country and settle in a different country. Now, on Thursday, we listened to a lesson about a man named Charles Steinmetz, and he had immigrated from Germany. And he was pushed out of his country because he had spoken out against the government, and he feared that he would be going to jail because of it. So today we're going to be learning a little bit about what happens or what life is like when immigrants move to big cities. So I don't know about you, but I have been to New York City before, and New York City is crowded. Everybody's really close to each other. It's also really loud. There's a lot of music and a ton of people and a ton of noise, but it is very crowded. There's a lot of people in one spot. So as I'm reading today, we're actually going to be learning about a different immigration center. So when Charles Steinmetz came to this country, his ship landed in Ellis Island, which was in New York City. And today we're going to be learning about a different immigration center, and that is on the other side of the country in California, which is a different state, and it's completely on the other side of America. So remember, as you're listening today, I want you to be listening for what life was like for immigrants in the big city. Alrighty, here we have Marie looking out of her window at the busy street below. Marie awoke to the sound of a voice outside her window calling, "Buy my fresh fruit, good to eat, crunchy apples, red and gold, sweet cherries, strawberries. Buy my fresh fruit, good to eat." Then, like the different colored yarns her grandmother knitted together to make a scarf, the sounds of the city began to weave together, one after another. First, Marie heard the clear ringing of the bells hanging around the necks of the goats and provided goat's milk to some of the neighbors' homes. Then she heard a creaking sound she knew belonged to Mr. Jacob's wagons. He delivered cow's milk and cheese from his dairy across town. Now, Mr. Diplis, a jolly Greek man, started calling, knife sharpener, axes, scissors, shovels, picks, blades, and handles I can fix." Marie liked the grinning little man. He was built as solidly as a bull, and he walked the city streets pushing a cart that held his sharpening stones and tools. Oh, I like the different sounds that she's hearing, the different sights that she's seeing. She's using all of her senses to kind of encounter the city. All right, here we have a picture of Marie, and she's awakening, which means waking up her younger siblings. Marie awakened her two younger sisters, who shared the bed with her, then crossed the little room in 2 steps to wake her baby brother, who was still small enough to sleep in an open drawer of their old wooden dresser. "Everybody up," she said. My gosh, I cannot believe they put the baby in a dresser drawer, and 3 little girls are sleeping in that bed. I don't know if I would like to share my room, not only my room, but my bed with that many people. Alrighty, here we have Marie's papa and mama getting ready for a long work day. Marie's day was just beginning, but Papa would have already left in the dark, hours before dawn, for his job at the mattress factory. Mama would have woken up with him to brew his coffee and cook his breakfast. As he started down the 7 flights of wooden stairs, she would have handed him his metal lunch pail with the sandwich she had made for him. I love that the mama shows kindness by doing something kind for the father by making him lunch and coffee. Alrighty, what do we have here? It looks like Marie is helping her siblings get dressed. Our new home is not our quiet little village. Our new home is not like our quiet little village in Italy, Marie thought for the 1,000th time as she helped her youngest sister and brother get dressed. So many people here, so much noise, and Papa has to work so hard for so many hours in that smoky factory. Still, she thought, at least Papa has a job. Back home, there were no jobs. Ooh, that sounds like a push factor that may have pushed him out of Italy, that there are no jobs. very little to eat, and the floors in our little house were made of dirt. Here in America, there is plenty to eat, and we live in a good building. I wish there were not so many people crowded in with us, though. I do not like having so many friends. I do like having so many friends, and I enjoy the city, but sometimes I would like it to be quiet, the way it was in our little village in Italy. But I am very thankful to be here in America, where there are so many opportunities. Ooh, I like that she is showing gratitude, like our character strength this week. How do you guys think Maria feels about her new life in America? What did she tell us? I heard her say that she's thankful for her new friends. She's thankful that Papa has found a job. She doesn't really like, though, how many people and how much noise there is. Alrighty, here we have a picture of immigrants in Ellis Island. Remember, Ellis Island is the immigration center we learned about on Thursday. Marie's life was typical of the lives of millions of immigrants who came from Europe and Asia to the United States for better job opportunities in the 1800s and early 1900s. The largest wave or group of immigrants, 23 million people, came to the United States between 1880 and 1920. That's about 100 years ago, 100 to 140 years ago. 23 million is a big number, isn't it? That's more people than live in the entire state of Florida today. So more people than the entire state of Florida moved to the United States in those 40 years. Immigrants from Europe entered through Ellis Island in New York Harbor, and many stayed near the harbor, living in or around New York City on the East Coast. Other immigrants moved away from New York to join friends or relatives who were already living farther north in Boston, south of Philadelphia, or west in the great cities of the Midwest, such as Chicago, Detroit, or Cleveland. So some people stayed right around where they had landed in New York City, and others moved to different cities. All right, let's see if I can make this smaller so we can see it. There it is. Alrighty, here we have immigrants at Angel Island. Meanwhile, Chinese and other immigrants from Asia came to the west coast of the United States through the city of San Francisco, passing through the Angel Island Immigration Center in San Francisco Bay. There were fewer Asian immigrants, so the immigration center on Angel Island was not as large as the immigration center on Ellis Island in New York Harbor. Still, there was a steady stream of immigrants, and these Chinese and other Asian immigrants settled in cities around the San Francisco Bay, or moved more inland, away from the ocean. They would often stop in the mining camps of California mountains in search of gold, joining other gold seekers from across the United States and from other nations around the world. After finding no gold, many Chinese went to find work building the railroads that would soon join the east and the west coasts in the country. Do you guys remember the name of the railroad you learned about in the westward expansion domain that linked the east and the west coast of the United States? What was the name of that railroad? Yeah, it was called the Transcontinental Railroad because it crossed from the east to the west coast. Now that is the railroad that they're talking about that many Chinese immigrants helped lay the railroad tracks for and helped build that railroad. Alrighty, let me just try to zoom it in enough that you can see it. There we go. Alrighty, here we go. Although many immigrants settled in the countryside as farmers or villagers, most of them made their homes in the big cities of America. What are some of the big cities that we've learned about? We learned about New York City, we learned about San Francisco, we heard about Chicago and Philadelphia as well. Many immigrants settled in these large cities because there were more jobs there. Earlier, immigrants remembered the hardships and difficulties they had experienced settling in a new country and often helped the newcomers, or people who had recently arrived in the United States, to find jobs. City immigrants worked in factories, making everything from shirts and dresses to the buttons and buckles that closed them. from small wooden picture frames to huge wooden railroad cars, from loaves of bakery bread to huge ovens in which to do the baking. Some owned their own businesses, little shops and stores that sold produce to eat or goods from their home countries. Others sold items from carts or wagons, which they pushed themselves or had horses pull for them. What were some of the hardships that newcomers faced? Well, we know that they maybe had hard times finding jobs at first. We know that they were very crowded together. Alrighty. Here we have a picture of a big, bustling city. It is a photo of an ethnic neighborhood in New York City. Wherever they came from and wherever they settled, the newcomers found other immigrants who had brought with them the customs, the foods, and the languages from their home countries. Customs are the beliefs and the ways of doing things that have been long established. Different immigrants have different customs and traditions depending on where they are from. Many immigrants who lived in the cities gathered in ethnic neighborhoods with other immigrants from their native countries. People would say, "That's Little Italy over there," or "This neighborhood is called Chinatown." Germans, Polish, Italians, Irish, African Americans, European, Jewish, Japanese, Norwegians, and many other groups had what they thought of as their own parts of town. So people that came from the same countries lived together in the same parts of towns. They felt at home there. Cafes and restaurants served their traditional foods made with old and familiar recipes. Crowded apartments were decorated with familiar items from home, and all around them they heard the languages from their homelands. By living close together, immigrants not only felt more at home, but they were also able to support each other in finding jobs and learning English. They moved with people who could help them. They served the foods that they were familiar with, they decorated the same way, and they had the same languages. Here we have a picture of people on the street in the big city. Immigrants felt safer and more comfortable in these neighborhoods, but they would often have to travel outside their parts of town to work and live. Sometimes, when they left their neighborhoods and met people from other places, they learned from one another and enjoyed it. Oh, I love this love of learning and the way that they're sharing their knowledge with each other. Sometimes they met only unfriendliness or even hatred. Immigrants discovered that some people from outside their community could often be hostile or very unfriendly and unwelcoming towards them because they were different. Oh, that's not right. I don't like that. Some Americans believed that immigrants were coming into the country and taking their jobs. However difficult their new lives in America could be, the lives of many immigrants improved when they moved to or settled in the United States. The longer immigrant families lived in the United States, the less hostility they felt. You guys just heard that the word hostile means unfriendly or unwelcoming. The word hostility comes from the word hostile. And it just means that it's the way that people are treating them. So the longer they were there, the less hostility or the less unfriendliness they encountered or faced. Over time, children of immigrants felt even less hostility, as did their children's children. And in time, they were accepted by Americans, just like everybody else. All right, guys, that is the end of our story about life in the big city. We're going to go over our vocab word, and then we're going to do our Google form together. Alrighty, in the read aloud, you heard this sentence. Cafes and restaurants served their traditional foods. I'm going to say the word traditional, and your turn. Good job, traditional. Traditional means customary or long established and describes something that has been done in the same way for a long time. So Americans celebrating Christmas with a Christmas tree is a tradition. So that's very traditional of us. It's something that's been done for a long time. Alrighty, guys, I am going to stop sharing my screen super quickly. Alrighty, guys, I'm going to share my screen with you. We're going to quickly go over your Google form. So our name of our Google form today is Life in the City, because that was the name of our read aloud. Listen to the read aloud for Domain 2, Lesson 3, and then complete the form. All right, first things first, write your name. Second things second, what pushed Maria's family out of Italy? Her dad didn't have a job, there was a war in her country, or her family was sick. Why did Maria's family come to the United States of America? What was the name of the immigration center where Maria's family landed in New York City? Was it called Syracuse, New York? Was it called Ellis Island? Or was it called Angel Island? Lastly, many immigrants were treated unkindly. True or false? Alrighty, guys, that is our end of our lesson for today. I hope you've enjoyed learning about what life in the city was like. I cannot wait to keep teaching you guys about this, and I hope you have an awesome day. See you later. Bye, guys.